Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I'm Eszter Kismődi, Chief Executive of Sexual and Reproductive Health Matters, and I'm here, standing here today in Budapest, 13th of April 2026, about 16 hours after the Hungarian election results were announced. I'm Hungarian, and this is a deeply personal moment for me. Yesterday's election results mark a significant political shift after 16 years of Orbán-era governance, opening a potential new chapter for democratic institutions, rule of law and human rights in Hungary. The outcome has relevance not only nationally but also globally, as developments in Hungary have been closely watched as part of wider debates about democratic resilience and the protection of rights. I was 16 years old in 1989 when the previous political regime fell. Just 3 years later, I was part of the first generation of lawyers that began to contribute to building democratic institutions in Hungary. That period shaped how I understand law, human rights, and the role of public institutions, including health systems, and supporting dignity, equity, and autonomy. Today, my son is 16 years old, the same age I was in 1989. He was born in 2010, when the Orbán era began, and his entire life has unfolded within these past 16 years. That contrast feels particularly striking at this moment. It makes me reflect not only on what kind of country young people are growing up in today, but on what these 16 years have meant more broadly for democracy, gender equality, human rights, and the integrity of our healthcare system in Hungary, and on signals this election may send globally about the direction and resilience of democratic values. I'm honored to have this conversation with Professor Judit Sándor, Professor of Political Science and Law at the Central European University. And Judit, I would like to ask you to tell a little bit more about your professional background as well. And it's a very special moment to me because Judit has been an important mentor to me, introducing me together with extraordinary Hungarian bioethicists such as Béla Blaszauer and József Kovács to understanding that democratization of health system is inseparable from human rights. And I learned about patients' rights and how to introduce patients' rights in the healthcare system from Judit. So, Judit, we are here, we were together out on the street last night. What this election means, both in Hungary and globally, from Europe, based on your opinion, and also what happened in the past 16 years, and what opportunities and challenges this new election result can bring.
This is really an unprecedented victory in Hungary, and I cannot underestimate the relevance of it, both in human rights and also it has relevance of the whole constitutionality and also the reestablishing of checks and balances. And I was very happy, and of course we are all very tired and exhausted, but very happy after the yesterday events. I think there is a new generation who's finally understood that we can do a lot for democracy. It's not given for granted. I think that was a mistake to believe that once we reached, after the political economic transition of a new regime, which is based on the rule of law, then it's taken for granted. We cannot take it for granted. We have to constantly invest efforts in order to maintain the rule of law. Now, after the democratic backsliding, now it's a democratic front sliding, which we have to build again of a meaning of the rights, and also vulnerable groups who suffered enormously during the past 16 years in different domains, and I cannot list them all because it was really of a very important, and it had a devastating effect to various groups, not only the minority, not only the people of working in the academia, in the media, etc., in the NGO sector, the civil society, etc. And the new generations, many of them for whom it was the first occasion to vote, they could see that if they believe in something, they put efforts in it, they can reach something which seemed even 2 weeks ago almost impossible. So I really think that it will be a jump board. And again, Hungary had to go through something which was unprecedented because from a state socialism, we went to a system of a kind of liberal democracy, then illiberal democracy, populism, and then, of course, even a very mass violation of human rights, and how to rebuild. And also there was a mass apathy in the society, so it's extremely difficult to convince people that you have to believe and you have to give yourself a content to these rights. Of course, the sequences and the logistics and the design of all is still ahead of us. I'm not saying that it will be easy, it will be very difficult, but once people learn and experience that they can do something together, when they are not afraid, when they work collectively together, and even such abstract things as rule of law, checks and balances, constitutional rights, rights within the healthcare system can be translated into small steps, and people, when they feel we didn't use these expressions, I hope we shall use again, that people who suffered of various forms of discrimination, this is their experience, which they, in a way, they almost denied it because they were in a survival mode for decades.
May I ask you that you are a board member of SRHM and also a director of CELAB, and to be honest, I learned from you at the first hand. At that time in the 90s, there were no strong human rights education, and especially nothing about human rights and healthcare in my formal legal education. And in terms of we are creating evidence-based research, evidence has so much importance, and you are running the research institution. How do you think that democratic values, rule of law, enshrining of human rights and enforcement of human rights, for example, can influence what research needs to be taken to influence democratic values, systems, and their implementation?
I think that one of the problems of human rights and constitutional values that many of even people, professors and those people who work in NGOs, they use very abstract terms. And in everyday life, where people have some difficulties to understand what is this implication in their own life. And we have to give examples. And actually what we went through in the last 2 years, it was a kind of experience to understand that there is a common language and there are some shared experience. Maybe we didn't identify them as a kind of violation of rule of law. People don't speak in these terms, but their experience that they suffered the discrimination in the field of their work. It was not a merit-based evaluation, for instance, connections meant more, or women were much more valued according to whether they would contribute to it, children in pronatalism, but they were on the other side of the rights were not really valued, for instance, their own safety, bodily integrity, etc. And I think that once you see concrete examples and you have to speak to other people, and these occasions, when these meetings together, which unprecedented amount of common meetings, demonstrations, celebrations in the country, they gave occasion to understand that we are not that different. That people who before they felt that they have a sharply different views on certain things, but these events, they say that there is a common value and we can value, for instance, this country, we can get back the even a kind of symbolism which has been monopolized before, and then we can also deal better with the existing differences, because of course there are differences between us.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Judith. And as we were discussing this since 10 p.m. yesterday, when the election results were coming out, we were getting messages from all over the world. You mentioned so many countries, from India, Brazil, Afghanistan, from all over this place. So we are really hoping that these election results are giving hope for
and
other
I think
societies.
it's also for young generations and also to us gives a kind of confidence that finally they value what these people in Hungary did in an almost impossible situation, and that gives a lot of energy and courage to go on, because it will be extremely complicated task given the current economic international situation. But then I think that this victory helped us to position ourselves also differently in the international arena, and I think this is very rewarding that people got also congratulations from all over the countries, from different countries in the world.
And we are happy and proud to be Hungarian again.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm also here today with Rosa Zolnai in Budapest again, just the day after the elections. Rosa has been an SRHM intern most recently with us, and you are finishing your philosophy degree at the University College of London. You have grown up in Budapest, and you are starting your legal internship and possibly going to law and policy interest. And it has been very clear by the news, I think by now, that it's really the young population of Hungary who led these revolutionary elections and led to the results. And I just would like to ask you, Rosa, that how do you feel today? Why is it important for you, these election results?
So I think, as most of you would know, Orbán Viktor has been in government for the past 16 years, which also means that for a lot of my generation, people in their 20s, they don't really remember anything other than Viktor Orbán being the Prime Minister of Hungary. And I think we also grew up in the system, so we've never seen a change of system before. But we also experience how Hungary in international news and media is also very closely associated with Orbán's name. And I think it would be fair to say that a lot of people my generation feel quite a big dismay or disappointment in that. And it's such a relief to see that is changing now, and that we will very hopefully have a very different future in front of us than what we would have if it would continue to be the Orbán regime. So I think it's fair to say that most of the people in my generation, as I hope people in other generations as well, as we can see that from the amount of people who took part in the election yesterday, very much welcome this election result. And we can see that from international reactions to the news, specifically from a lot of leaders in the European Parliament, as we know that Orbán had, some will say, very much weakened our connections with the European Union and portrayed the European Union, specifically the actions of Brussels, as something that is very bad for the country. And I think most people in my generation just very much welcome the results of this election.
And also when we were working with SRHM, we talked about, and I think our collaboration was very much about how laws and policies, human rights, gender equality impacts on sexual and reproductive health. How do you see that these democratic values that we are looking for to be re-established in Hungary is influencing this area of equality, women's health, gender rights, gender equality?
So I think I'm quite lucky because I have a point of comparison. As Eszter said, I study in the UK, in London, and coming from and having grown up in Hungary, I think it serves me, as I said, as a ground of comparison to see how reproductive health and sexual rights and just human rights in general are approached in both the countries. I think, again, it's fair to say that in Hungarian education, there's not much emphasis on discussing sexual health in general, let alone sexual rights. I think it's also important to mention that in the new government's campaign, in Magyar Péter's campaign, I think he quite intentionally didn't put as much emphasis on sexual and reproductive health, because sadly, I think in Hungary, this is a very much under-discussed topic, and he and analysts say that it would like skew his campaign into a certain direction if he would discuss it.
Possibly divisive, right?
Possibly divisive topic, especially in Hungary. But even today, from his first press conference, we can see that he's making a lot of progress and repairing, so to say, the damage that has been done by Orbán Viktor's government in the past couple of years. I think a lot of people will be familiar with the amendment of the Child Protection Act in 2022, which basically made it illegal to show any signs of, for example, LGBTQ behavior or relationships in public or in literature and in media as well. That has been something that, for me, growing up and then growing up in Hungary and then going to London has been a bit of a culture shock with how differently these topics are approached. But I think it would be reasonable to say that we are rightfully hopeful towards big changes in these topics as well.
Thank you so much, Rosie, and looking forward to maybe a conversation a year or 2 years from now to monitor progress. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Turning to my son Balázs, what does it mean to you, Balázs, to be here today in Hungary just a day after the elections?
I think it's a very important and historic moment for us younger people in Hungary. And yesterday I went to vote with my grandparents for the election, and I think that it's a key moment for younger people growing up in society where democracies are allowed and human rights are available to all people.
I'm very happy that we have been here together.